CSR teams are often considered as conscience keepers of the organization, those who implement things on the ground. But more so than the implementing part of the CSR, what is the thought of the leadership? How disconnected or connected it is with the core ideology or the thought process of the top leaders, and thinking in terms of the impact creation strategy that leaders do think about. So, to what extent the CSR implementation is guided by leaders' thought processes, the long-term impact vision, and how much tension or disconnect it brings to the process of achieving organizational goals in achieving a strategy. So how we'll be organizing, I'll request each one of you probably for a minute and a half to give your opening remarks on this. And then we'll take a second round, particularly focusing more on your own personal experience around this space, how the impact creation strategy by the organizations are being shaped up, and the context where we are in 1.4 billion people with the different aspirations and different kind of socio-economic realities that we are living in. So I'll request maybe from the center we can begin and then take it either way.
I've been a founder 3 times over. The last company actually went public. I was COO. And we actually took our CSR kind of responsibility very seriously because we wanted to make sure that we wanted to create a community impact. We wanted to create a cottage industry. We wanted to make sure that the employees could actually participate, because without that, you can't co-create these kind of ecosystems.
Yes.
So I think we took it very seriously, and it was not just like a triple bottom line thing. So I actually funded a company called Good Era as an angel. So it's basically still there, and they just basically have a CSR platform where they bring in this transparency, bring in a lot of excitement, a lot of content. So I think that's happening. And as we see, subsequently, when we invested and some of the companies have gone public, very similar kind of a thing where people, the younger next generation entrepreneurs, are actually not just saving money or doing something shady. They are changing. I wish the change happens faster. And I hope we're able to create a whole bunch of entrepreneurs from that, because every company that I started, there were at least 10 companies that came out. So that should be it.
Yes. So CSR is an excellent practice in India, but one should remember that it can be only an adjunct practice to the mainstream. It cannot take over government's role. Okay, for example, whether it is the government's initiative of Swachh Bharat or laying roads or building things or any of the areas, other areas which are there, health, hygiene, any area, you can't do it at scale. Because with this 2% which you take, you can't, for example, length and breadth, you cannot take over ministry's role, you cannot take over government's role, you cannot do that. So then where do you deploy the CSR money? You have to deploy the CSR money in areas which make a real difference, which have a multiplier effect, scaling effect. That means at a crucial key areas in which if you change that, you can serve millions of people. You can't, for example, laying a road somewhere. That's a very limited scope in which it will have a limited impact, right? Or maybe one school, municipal school, or building a toilet or something. So essentially, fortunately, we have areas we need not look very far. There are tech areas. So if you invest in tech in any area, you're probably more likely to get that kind of a multiplier effect with a greater impact. Okay, so that is where it should be. And also, of course, talent development and all those go hand in hand, but probably increasingly we should see CSR funds going there. To give our own example, in DSCI, Data Security Council of India, we run in partnership with Microsoft one program called Cyber Siksha. So in which we take young women who come from a low-income background. Okay, so women, then low-income background and cybersecurity area. We train them for 4 months or so fully into cybersecurity, and then help them with the placements also. And the results have been really good, quite good, in fact. So we would also like to take CSR for the purpose of investing in those crucial areas, tool building and everything, which would help if you put in critical infrastructure also, which would help in protection of the whole country, millions of citizens and all that. That is what I meant by a multiplier effect, which should be there. I think they should go into those areas. And the other thing is that, to your question on how much interest the top management have, it is far better for companies to focus on their area, their line of business. For example, a healthcare company can focus on giving CSR in healthcare, okay, and some other company, let's say you have finance companies, they can help in probably improving the financial structure or so, financial initiatives for maybe rural cooperative banks or stuff like that. They can go into those areas. Then there is a direct alignment. If you try to veer away from something else which you are not related, then you can't make sense. There will be a mismatch and you will not be able to do much justice. There won't be much interest also in the organization. So that is where one should stay true to one's domain and all.
I think that raises, thank you, sir. I think that raises a very important issue of the CSR itself. To what extent its alignment with the core business operations of a firm is, and versus what national mandates are like. Something is meant for government, not for CSR. I think that raises a very important issue as well. So moving forward to you, I mean, with your tech experience of over, as we were just discussing, how do you see CSR in the core business objectives of the organizations?
I think it's an interesting topic because it cannot be a check donations. It cannot be a check in the box. It has to be something which has to have a meaningful impact. I can tell you that I'd been in the engineering and tech industry for 3 decades. And what we had been able to do with a small team of about 30 people, we launched 108, which is called as EMRI in Hyderabad in 2006. In 2009, we made million lives have been saved in some form or other. So the point I really want to bring out is, I think it's just not about wanting to do something different, but wanting to contribute to the society with minds of people who are really capable of doing it. How do you bring the intellectual capacity to the broader societal impact? I think that's something which is not really happening at scale. And I've seen mixed bag in terms of many times it just ends up being one of the line items in the corporate tracker. I was also part of a CEO, part of a board. But I think it's really not to the extent that it should be making an impact. In fact, I'm part of NASCOM Engineering Council, and we recommended, can we take portion of the CSR towards the R&D or innovation spend in the country, be it on rural innovation or be it on sustainability, be it on tech innovation that can happen. For example, the biggest opportunity for the next decade is going to be around just labeling for annotations on artificial intelligence. And China has created about leaps of entities. They created small cities of 50,000 people each, about 2 dozen of them, who are just doing annotation and labeling. So it could be a rural a job creation and innovation opportunity for us to really bring this up. But it is not really happening at the scale it should be. And it is still a kind of a check in the box. And if it really can be channelized to leverage the talent availability from the corporates, I think mostly on the tech talent, mostly on the cerebral people who are going to be involved, I think it can really make a much bigger impact. I don't think we would be able to solve the problem on sustainability and job creation in India unless we really find the funding that is coming in to be channelized in a purposeful way to make a bigger impact to the society.
Oh, that's wonderful. Actually, this brings almost probably extending to the same. What industry does so well, and the country's requirements are, we are lagging far behind in some of them, leveraging what businesses do at core at best and probably what country needs. If somehow the synergy of these two can be, created through CSR, that will be ideal way. So, sir, probably in that, what your experience brings to CSR and
the fact that the previous company that I worked with, the very idea of the company was born out of a CSR initiative. Back in the day, late 90s, there was a school that was being run by the previous CEO of our company. He happened to start computer education at that school. Some of the kids were able to pay and some of the other kids could not pay. And at that point in time, I was part of the team that was teaching at that place. And we decided that we would offer those kids that would not be able to pay also free education after the school hours. And that led to some of the guys from the US calling us and asking us if they can utilize these kids for getting work done. And that led to the company that we created. Today, it's about a $300 million company. And we felt that it was important for us to be able to contribute towards the CSR cause as well. Not because we think that it is, it's good in the books, but because we felt that it was sort of an obligation that we had to, sort of contribute towards. So we picked up multiple things as part of what we did. One of the things that we did was to rehabilitate people that were schizophrenic and people like that. If you would see people on the streets, you would not see too many people in Hyderabad right now running around in the roads and stuff like that. That's because we sort of had a program through which we would pick up these people, rehabilitate them through a program we had with with Mr. Bharat Vatwani in Pune. And we were surprised by the amount of impact that this initiative created, particularly when we were rehabilitating some of these people along with their families who did not even know where they went. To see the sort of pleasure and joy in the families that we were able to reunite these people with, it was absolutely mind-boggling. But more importantly, we believed that this was not something that we'll have to do just as a company. We had to get the rest of the company involved. And a lot of people within the company that were working with us got involved as well. The idea was, surely if you would do something for someone without expecting anything in return, you would do much better job at something that you get paid for, by your customer or by your client. So that was the whole idea. We didn't ask anyone to do it, but as we went about, sort of publishing these stories to the rest of the company, a lot of people proactively got involved purely because of the joy that it gave them, and then they were able to respond to that really well. So that's the experience. I think, to answer your question, I probably went in a roundabout way to answer your question, but I think it's in every which way, while the government contributes in whichever way they can, it's probably every individual's and every company's responsibility as well to sort of identify specific initiatives that they could sort of help in this space.